We're back again for another episode of Audra talking to the people on Facebook. Welcome back to day 17. And this topic, I feel like I always say, I'm like, this is one of the best topics. But this topic of certainty beyond logic has been one of the most important shifts around work, around how we create, around our ability to manifest, about really being a visionary and being able to create something that has never existed before. And for a long time, I didn't have the words around it. I had some words around it. I had the concept. I'd known I did it before, but I never really locked into what, in essence, was the magic, the kind of like fairy dust behind some of the things I had created. And recently, probably in the last year and a half, I've been studying Kabbalah, which if you're unfamiliar, it is a spiritual philosophy. It is not a religion. It is simply something that allows anybody in any religion or even just spiritual to get closer to their relationship between the divine, the universe, God, Mother Nature, whatever you define it as, and yourself. Because in Kabbalah, there is only you and the light of the Creator. That is it. Those are the only, that's the passageway. And the whole point of our existence is to get closer to the light of the Creator, to become one, to become like the Creator. In other words, all of what I've been talking about has been in the essence of you getting closer to the truth of who you are, which is to your soul, to the I am, to that which is the unseeable, the unknowable, the faith, right? In that connection with the divine, with your purpose here on earth, with your soul connection, with all of it, with all. Because the divine, the creator, is all, and you are all. And you are capable of all. But within this study, it finally gave me an understanding of how people create things that are beyond comprehension, are beyond logic, are beyond the physical reality, are beyond what people think is possible, right? The majority of people live, as we've been talking about, within the confines of what they can see to create. That's why a lot of people stay stuck in certain places and spaces. And it's not to say that everybody that stays in their hometown is stuck, right? Everybody has a different journey in this lifetime. Everybody has a different purpose in this lifetime. And so understanding that we all find different spaces and how we're supposed to express it. But it's in this expression of, right, this journey that we have been asked and called to. So I kind of lost. I had something. I had a train of thought and I lost it there. But for a long time, I couldn't figure out how I had created some of the things that kind of defied logic. An example of that, and I gave a little bit of this story before, but the house that I'm currently in, I ended up getting as a single mom with no money and getting the most insane deal of, walking into close with $327 check and brokering a deal that didn't make any sense. Like, it did not make sense for me as a single mom with probably $17 in her bank account to call a realtor, come look at a house, and then end up moving into it and purchasing it within 2 years. It didn't make any sense. It defied all logic. Like, nobody would have said, that's a good idea. You should probably do that. They would have said, no, you got to save money. You got to be realistic. You got to talk to the bank. You got to check your credit score. But I was certain. I'd seen the place. I was like, I'm going to make this happen. I was certain behind any logical explanation for it. And I made it happen. And there's been other things that I've done that with, where I've locked into this energy of when I decided to go into real estate and I had gotten my license, and there's a whole story even behind getting my license, which is a defy the odds example in itself. But I decided I was going all in. I closed my bakery. I ended up quitting my job, and I went all in and then built a 6-figure real estate business. It defied all logic, but I was certain that I was going to do it. I had certainty. But where did this certainty come from? Where did I find this certainty? Where was I able to see something? And even when I went into real estate, I knew that it wasn't my forever career path. I knew that it was a stepping stone. I knew it was something that I needed to do to get to another place. But I was certain about that too. That had came to me. It just hit me one day, and I heard it, and I said, okay, I have to go this way. Certainty beyond logic. But where did that certainty come from? How did I know? And in my mind, that's always in the connection with the source, however you define it. It is your connection to that which is the unseen. It is the guiding force in our lives. And on top of that, the sinking into the certainty beyond logic is beyond just the things that we engage in that we have to really, we're certain we're going to make it happen, which is a special kind of energy to be able to do that. But to go deeper, and this is what I've really been learning as I've continued to study, not just Kabbalah, but other spiritual texts over the last year, or really 20-something years of my life, but is that certainty beyond logic is something that you strive for. You don't strive to get something specific necessarily, but you strive to become like the Creator, to become closer, to be filled with more light, to have more certainty in all the things that you do. Having the certainty beyond logic all the time, that everything is always working out, that everything is for you, that the problems that you have right now, you get to say, thank you, what a pleasure. I am certain that it is working in my highest good, right? If we tap back into that mantra that I had yesterday, which was, I trust the process of life to bring me my highest good. That doesn't mean that we all get to avoid the human experience and not experience pain, but we can have a different relationship with pain. We can have a different relationship with the things we experience in our lives. We can have a different relationship when we get a intuition or a nudge to go in a certain direction, instead of ignoring it, to follow the intuition because it's for our highest good. That's steeped in the certainty beyond logic. Because there's been times that it hasn't made sense to me to make the moves that I've made. And this is part of this year of being for me, really. This is me strengthening that for myself. This is me encouraging you to strengthen that in yourself. To know that sometimes we have the intuition to do something that doesn't make sense, to make a phone call that doesn't make sense, to send an email that doesn't make sense, to move somewhere that doesn't make sense, to leave a relationship that doesn't make sense, to not continue being friends with somebody, but it doesn't make sense. But your intuition says, you can't keep going that way. You have to leave this job now. You have to do this thing now. You have to. And that's where you get to tap into that certainty, because the certainty, the guide, is beyond logic. There are things that are happening at all sorts of times that if we follow, we avoid some sort of level of pain, or we avoid something that's happening, or we have the intuition to turn right when we normally turn left, and we avoid a massive amount of traffic, or we avoid driving past a cop and getting a ticket and delaying us from getting the place that we so desperately need to go. Or maybe we are delayed and it ends up being for the best for us, right? Because there was a mechanical failure, or we would have missed something, or we'd have not met a person while sitting in the airport waiting on our delay. Everything happens in the right time, space, and sequence. And if we can be certain that we are guided, that everything is happening for us on the base level of our lives, then we can engage with the things that we feel like we need to go for, that we've been ignoring, that we've been saying, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do it. We don't need to know how to do it. We've never needed to know how to do it. A kid, a little baby or toddler didn't need to know how to walk to be able to figure out how to walk. We didn't need to know how to drive before learning how to drive. We didn't know how we were going to get through that degree program before we got through the degree program. We didn't know how we were going to make that decision before we made that decision. We didn't know how we were going to meet the love of our lives until we met the love of our lives. We didn't know how we were going to be successful until we were successful. I didn't know how I was going to start a business before I started a business. I didn't know who I was going to meet in the process, right? Certainty beyond logic. If we really think about it, right? Our brain wants to go to patterns and detectable things and things we've known. It loves to concentrate on the things we've known, which if we are looking to what's possible, we can't concentrate ever on the known, because the known is a small, little, tiny piece of the infinite potential in the universe. The brain wants to keep us there. But it's in the, I am certain, beyond logic, that what I feel is for me is for me. It doesn't have to make sense to you, to anybody else. The only thing that has to make sense is you know that it is a true desire from your soul, a true thing that's, and I'm going to talk about that actually tomorrow, most likely, about the desires from your soul. But that piece right there, you get to engage with, you get to take the steps, even when it makes no logic. No logic. It makes no logic, no logistical sense. It's like the people that go around talking about being delulu, being delusional. Well, that's just it. People have accomplished big things, people who have, and even if big things, small things, things that have not been created before, you have to have some level of delusion that you can create it. You live in a small town and you want to create a nonprofit for X, Y, and Z. It's never been done before. You have to have a certain level of certainty beyond logic. You have to be delusional in some way, shape, or form to create something that's never been created. Every person that's gone out and started a cafe or started, and while there is a model for starting cafes, that cafe had never been started by that person in that location in the way they did it ever before in the history of the world. You have to have some faith. You have to be able to say, I'm sure, right, back to that self-trust. If I trust myself, I cannot be wrong, even if it doesn't work out, because I trusted myself. And you get to say, yeah, sure, that cafe failed. I've started businesses and they've failed. I've started businesses and I've closed them. The reality of business is that all of them close eventually. Eventually they all close, even the one that spans generations. Maybe they get bought out. Maybe something happens. Maybe it gets handed over to new leadership, right? Everything eventually ends. We eventually end. But what if, knowing that everything eventually ends, that you eventually end, that sometime our time on earth will be done, and we have the pleasure of living this human experience the way that we want to live it. And we get to, I just want to say how fun it is to engage in the world in a playful way. In that what if, in that, yeah, I could create that. I mean, why not? Let me just go for it. Let me just see. Let me just ask people. Let me just investigate. I think people take life too seriously sometimes. That they think everything has to be by the rules, which I have to re-record the rules conversation from day 10, but it's we're all here trying to follow the rules given to us by somebody else. You get to have fun. This is a journey. You get to have fun. You get to have fun, and even when things in the world right now are challenging and they are awful and we oscillate between looking at the news and sheer horror and terror, helping the ways that we can, doing what we can. I encourage you to not mute your joy because of pain. You get to honor the pain. You get to help in the ways that you can. But we need more people in this world full of creative potential, the energy of certainty, the light from the Creator. We need more people in this world deeply connected to those things, deeply being led by intuition and by what they know is right. We need more people who critically think and ask questions and say, does that rule really make sense for me? We need more people that step out in that way. We need more people to believe in the truth of who they are. Right? I think it's Mahatma Gandhi that said, like, if you want to change the world, change yourself. Because everything, as we talked about, is energy, and the energy behind anything we do is palpable, and it gets translated. And if we go out into the world and we have foul intentions or not pure intentions in things that we're doing, that translates. This is a deeply inner conversation. And I hope there are people on the other end of this listening. You know, this has been a very raw experience. I'm really proud of the things that I've been talking about here. But sometimes you feel like you're just talking into the abyss, right? There's some people who watch for a couple seconds. But I know that regardless of whether this is seen by a ton of people right now or a ton of people later, that this now lives out there, that these conversations now live out in the world for anybody to watch. Here on YouTube, I'm doing short form content on TikTok. They live here now. They live in a way that anybody can access them. And this for me is my, like, getting a little emotional. This for me is my way of contributing right now. So I'm going to leave it here. And I look forward to our conversation. Actually, tomorrow is Celebration Sunday. So I look forward to seeing you on Celebration Sunday. I hope you have a beautiful Saturday night.